Thank you, Jonathan. That was lovely, and it's really nice to have you back. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. It's good to see so many of you here this morning. It's just wonderful. The summer keeps our spirits up. This congregation welcomes all who are seeking a clearer understanding of their place and purpose in the world and a deepening of their spiritual life. I'm Vicki Ash. I'm a member of this fellowship, and I'm happy to be your service leader this morning. And for those of you who were here last Sunday, I did come prepared with Psalm 8 in case we need it, just so you know. We especially welcome back today our speaker, who is the Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Welcome. Glad you're back. And a warm welcome to those of you who are here for the first time or returning after an absence. If you're comfortable doing so, we invite you to stand and introduce yourself so we may greet you by name. And if you have any questions about the fellowship, feel free to ask anybody wearing like an official name tag, or you'll see a lot of welcoming faces who would love to talk to you about UU. Anyone that wants to introduce themselves? Yeah, good.
I'm Betsy Boschka from Washington Island. I have not been to the UU since you were over in the other. I am currently attending Lutheran Church on the island, and they are planning to have a labyrinth.
Oh.
So I'm going to be taking notes.
Wonderful. Welcome. Yes.
How are you? I'm Judith from Safety Harbor, Florida, and we're going to put a labyrinth in at our Unity Church. And so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a student at York Linden. I come up every summer. I've been coming for 30 years. And a friend of mine read poetry from here many, many years ago. So it's
Welcome.
to be with you all. And I know some of you from York Linden from last week. So.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm Mary Sherman. I live in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and I sat next to Dave all week in our class at York Linden, and he told me about your church. And there is a UU church in the town where I used to teach, so when I go home, I'm like, I think I should go there. You know? And then just the labyrinth interested me because many years ago, my late husband and I took a labyrinth retreat weekend thing in Racine, Wisconsin, with Lauren Artress from California, the labyrinth person. So,
Welcome, Mary. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth. I'm Gabriel Carson. I've been here for a number of years. My husband is up here with me. We're just visiting for a few days. Which he was not feeling up to coming today, but he said to say hello to all of you. It's just great to see familiar faces. My son Kevin is here. He has a home up here too, down in the Fort Worth area where I live now. So it's just great to see all of you and appreciate being here.
Welcome. Yes.
Hi, I'm Karen Nystrom, I live in Elson Bay, and I'm so excited to hear your talk today because there's a labyrinth in the clearing, as many of you may know, that is back here today. She was instrumental in having that made, and we walk it every Tuesday, so it's open to anyone who wants to attend. But anyway, I'm so excited to hear.
Thank you. Great. Good. Anyone else that would like to? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Lynn and Ken Lehon. We're former seasonal members. I've been here for 5 years now. But we live in now Santa Barbara, but we were church in San Diego where Susan was with us last year for a brief time. So it's wonderful to see all of you, and I really appreciate your newsletter and all your communications. I get them regularly.
Well, welcome back. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Alice O'Donnell, and I've never been to a UU church in my life, and I have no idea what a labyrinth is. I'm here with my older sister and mentor for life, Rita, and I just look forward to learning more.
Well, welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Yes.
I want to add too that my friend here and I are students of Helen Klebasak.
Oh, yes.
For the artwork here. And
Yes.
I've been studying with her for over 30 years, so it's a pleasure to be here.
That's wonderful. Yes. Sure. Lots of wonderful visitors and returners. It's just heartwarming. I do have some housekeeping announcements. If you haven't silenced your cell phone or any other noise-making device, you might want to do that now, please. If you have trouble hearing me or our speaker, be sure to let us know. That may be adjusted to help you. There will be a talk back after the service today. We'll gather over here after we grab a cup of coffee and a goodie. And there are some additional announcements on the back of your leaflet. And I wonder if anyone from the floor has a brief announcement. Terry has the mic today and will come, and you're welcome to make announcements. Anything? Anybody?
Hi, I'm Mary Rainsmone, and I don't know that this fits in here, but I don't know where else to put it. And that is that I used to go in the winters to a little town near McAllen, Texas, which had a labyrinth, and we loved it. And I loved walking that. And now, ever since I saw that we were having this speaker about it, I was just thinking, do we have room to put one here? And I would hope we do, and I bet there would be enough people who might be interested. Look at all the people who are here.
Thank you. Any other announcements? All right. Now let us begin our service with these opening words, which are not the ones that are listed in the hymnal. We're going off script already this morning. These are the words of Pat Humphreys, who is one of two members of a group called Emma's Revolution. You'll hear more about that later. This is part of a song. I wish I had a voice to do it justice, but I'll just try to read it lyrically. We are living 'neath the Great Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in this stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Please stand as you are able for hymn number 123, which we will sing through twice, and then you can remain standing for the unison affirmation and the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, in every land, by every tongue. Please be seated. Joys fill our hearts, and a concern can be lightened when being shared. We invite you to share any joys or concerns you might have this morning. Terry will bring the mic to you, and a reminder that this service is broadcast, and please don't share names of people from whom you don't have permission. I'll speak up first because I had the extreme good fortune to visit Maui and visit that beautiful little village of Lahaina. And it has been weighing very heavy on my heart what's happened to those people and that place. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Helene DeLeo, and I have a lovely granddaughter by the name of Emily DeLeo, and she has just passed her real estate boards, and she's now working at Sotheby's down on Mill Road. So if anybody knows anybody who wants to buy or sell, I know this probably isn't the place to do this, but I did it anyway.
My kid Art, who spoke here in March, many of you may remember them as Anya, but they go by Art now, is moving to Providence today to start a new job at Brown University tomorrow. So we're very happy for them. And Simon just took off for senior year at New Mexico Tech.
I finally got my son Eric up here to visit and see part of his property, which could almost be a labyrinth. I don't know if you all realize, but I've got no trails throughout that entire property, and you're all welcome to walk anytime you want. But the best thing is he helped me plant the last of my 200 trees. So my trees finally are in the ground, and then somebody up above put a ton of rain on them. The last time we had to water everything by hand, and now it rained on them. So I've got new trees, and they're doing well. They're just sitting up. Very happy. Thank you.
Well, many of you know I celebrated my big 80th birthday last month, but yesterday my kids gave a family party, and so there were 42 people there from Connecticut to Idaho, and it was just very heartwarming and wonderful, and the weather was perfect.
Judy Brudd. I have a shout out to all the people in Ohio who, voted to save our democracy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maria Thompson, and I'm cousins with Anna Knapp. And I just wanted to shout out that she ran her first half marathon this last weekend, and I'm very proud of her, and I love you very much.
Hi, Pam Good, and we are so excited because on Friday, Theo heads out to Harvard, our first grandson going to college. And so we're going to miss him dreadfully, but we're wishing him, wonderful times there.
I need to add to Maria's account. Anna, is our fellowship president. I believe she's our first president that has run a half marathon.
I think you have a counter coming here.
Now, let me, as the past president, immediately succeeding Anna, let me confirm that. Also, we had our first board. And we had a board meeting the other day, and it was a delight to sit there as a board member rather than as the board president. So that was a good thing. But what I really wanted to say was, many of you know I'm a native of the Netherlands. And so that brings to mind concern, that being that the Dutch are no longer in the World Cup. But there is a joy as a corollary to that. We outlasted the US.
I'm Ruth Budick, and I can't match your numbers for 82 or 81, but we had 21, and it was all family for the past week, and I still have a remnant. My daughter, Diane from Texas, her husband and daughter are with me yet, and the daughter is preparing to run a marathon in New York with a good friend who is a survivor of breast cancer. So
Oh.
that's her motivation. She's
Very
in
good.
training now.
Very good.
Yes, hi, I'm Kevin Del Carson. You probably know my parents, Richard and Jane. My dad is here at the cottage. He didn't feel well enough to come to church this morning, but they are 96 and 91 years old, and they live in Texas now to be close to me. I have a summer home here, so I come up here every year, but this is their first time back in 8 years, so I'm very happy to be back with them and they could make this trip.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you all so much for sharing all of that. And now our offertory in support of this place and the ministry it inspires. I invite you to join me in a moment of silence Let us still our minds and open our hearts to fully appreciate life here and now. The Reverend Suzelle Lynch, our speaker today, is a semi-retired UU minister. I think we all know about semi-retirement, don't we? You're in good company here. Who lives in Janesville with her partner who's here today, Tom Ness. Suzelle is a trained labyrinth facilitator and has taught about labyrinths for many years. She has also written songs, including hymns, Christmas carols, and pagan chants. Her core musical influences include Ella Fitzgerald, punk rock, and Emma's Revolution, who gave us the unforgettable lyrics of our opening reading. She asked me to read the following for you as our reading before her talk today. The Reverend Teresa Soto, who uses the personal pronouns they, them, theirs, is a Unitarian Universalist minister and activist. They have enjoyed interim ministry, settled ministry, and chaplaincy with veterans. Our reading is titled Prevail, an Entomology, and is from their 2019 book of poetry, Spilling the Light. Isn't it a weird word, though, prevail? How could we win before we encounter the challenge? Before what? Not like preheat an oven or pre-measure an ingredient. It turns out that the pre doesn't mean before in the way that we're all used to. It comes from a Middle English pra, which means toward greater strength. That and a quarter will get you a gumball. Let me reassure you, no one knows everything, even though some people wisecrack like they do. You could not know before right now what this moment would call for. Knowing, you now move toward greater strength. Knowing this very moment, you teach yourself and your communities what and how we shall be more able, not simply to survive the day, but also to take the future back into your own hardworking hands, our communal resistance and possession. You will prevail if you commit. Doing the next thing because it is next. Moving toward greater strength, building the skills it takes to heal the aching world. Suzelle.
Thank you, Vicki. And good morning to you all. Good to be here with you again. I invite you to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine that you're setting out for a walk on a smooth, well-marked pathway. You step along, following the path, feeling calm but alert as you move. You're confident, but there's also a part of you that's wondering, seeking, yearning, a part of you that's being led by your life's deepest questions. As you walk, the way before you turns to the right and then curves onward gently. The path continues along such curves, and sometimes it turns 180 degrees, doubling back on itself. It just unfolds before you as you move at your own pace. And now you make a final turn and you step into a wider space, a space that invites you to pause or stop even, a space that invites you to breathe. You sense that you're welcome to stay here, to rest here for as long as you need to, that here you can relinquish your cares or perhaps let go of the question you've carried. And so you rest, you breathe, perhaps you stretch your arms to the sun, or pray, or sing. And then you step back onto the path, returning along its easy curves and tighter turns until you reach the place where the path began. Welcome to the labyrinth. You can open your eyes. Welcome to the labyrinth, an ancient symbol for the life journey, a modern metaphor for the human quest for meaning. Welcome to the labyrinth, a purposeful path that spirals us deep into our own center and returns us to the world renewed. Labyrinths have existed on nearly every continent and in many different cultures for thousands of years. And the archaeological record tells us that they've been tools for meditation and prayer and ritual for many years. It seems that the labyrinth is an archetype, a symbol imprinted on human consciousness over time. But unlike many, they are an archetype that can be made big enough to step inside of and move around within. And that's perfect for what they represent, which is our human journey throughout life. Labyrinths come in many shapes and sizes, and I'd like to say a bit about the two most common forms, the 7th Circuit Classical Labyrinth and the 11th Circuit Medieval Labyrinth. So take a look at your labyrinth handout. The larger of the two designs on it is the classical labyrinth, which has 7 circuits or circles. This pattern is at least 4,000 years old. And this particular labyrinth symbol has been found on ancient manuscripts, carved into stone walls or rocks on many continents, engraved on coins in ancient Greece, and woven into the baskets of the Native American Tohono O'odham people who live in present-day Arizona. It's also been found in India and discovered laid out in full walking size on the shores of Scandinavia and Europe. The other symbol on your handout, down below here, the small one, is a medieval labyrinth, which is patterned after a labyrinth created in the 11th century at the Chartres Cathedral in France. Many such labyrinths were installed in European cathedrals during the High Middle Ages as a place of pilgrimage for Christians. It was during the Crusades, it wasn't safe to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and so the labyrinth was created as a place for people to go on pilgrimage. If these labyrinths look like mazes to you, you're not alone. People often confuse labyrinths and mazes. They do have some similarities. Both are complex and intriguing in design and are often in a circular form. But a maze is a puzzle to be solved. It has a pathway that branches and sometimes ends in blind alleys, Walking a maze on foot or tracing it with a pencil forces us to think analytically and make choices. The path through a labyrinth, on the other hand, just meanders and turns until it finally reaches a centering place, that welcoming open space we were talking about. And once we pause there, we follow the same path back out to the entrance. There are no choices to make except to keep putting one foot in front of the other. There's no blind alleys. Walking the labyrinth lets us set aside the analytical part of our minds, the part we have to use all the time in life to make choices and decisions. We can set that aside and just let the path lead us as it unfolds. Now, why would we want to do such a thing? Well, some of us probably wouldn't. I'll never forget what happened when a longtime member of the first congregation I served heard that we were building a labyrinth on the church grounds. Her name was Wilma Harkins. And when she heard about the labyrinth, she came to me, she buttonholed me, and she said, "Suzelle, I just can't imagine why all those people would want to walk in circles." She had a good point, but I had to laugh because I was one of those people who really, really liked walking in circles. But I couldn't convince Wilma. For me, though, walking the labyrinth is the most powerful spiritual practice I've ever experienced. Spiritual practices, of course, are activities we engage on a regular basis that connect us with the depth dimension of life. They help replenish our sense of meaning. They help us develop a sense of inner spaciousness. They don't have to be traditional or even religious, although people often think of prayer or meditation when they hear that phrase, spiritual practice. But we Unitarian Universalists have intentionally widened the definition of spiritual practice because we are so very diverse in the ways that we think about religion and meaning making. For us, a spiritual practice can be many things. I lost my place. But what they have in common is that they deepen our inner resources, our inner wisdom, and our sense of wholeness. They're not just things we do to make us feel good. Spiritual practices can also go under the rubric of deepening practices. I actually like that phrase better. They help us connect the sacred center within us to a sense of beyondness, whatever we might think of as that mystery that is more holy and wholesome than we can know individually. So I like that idea of deepening practice because the desire to live deeply is rooted in our religious heritage. Our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors believed that we needed to live consciously and fully in this life instead of waiting for something better in an afterlife. And yet, even with our this worldly focus as Unitarian Universalists, we've always been open to profound spiritual experiences. But what we lack in our tradition is any kind of clear injunction like the ones most of the founders of world religious traditions gave to their followers, like specific instructions about contemplative prayer or instructions for specific yogas or ways of working or particular meditation practices. We don't have that, unlike our Muslim neighbors and family and friends who were instructed by the Prophet Muhammad to pray 5 times a day while facing the holy city of Mecca. We don't have anybody in our founding saying to us, if you want to go deep or know the fullness of human richness and experience and connection to that beyondness, do this specific thing. We don't have anybody saying that to us, which is good, really. But it can kind of feel like we're floating out there on our own. What are we supposed to do to get to that depthfulness? indeed, we're actually compelled to go for that depthfulness. Our forebears, like William Ellery Channing, one of our early shaping ministers, like he declared nearly 200 years ago in a sermon called Likeness to God, he said, our very humanness compels us from within to grow in depth and responsibility. And by responsibility, he means the ability to respond with love and compassion to our world, with all of its beauty and all of its struggle. William Ellery Channing said that our ability to grow from within has more of divinity in it than there is in the force which impels the outward universe. Isn't that wonderful? Our depth, our ability to grow from within is more powerful than the force which impels the universe. And so we have an injunction to grow in depth, but no instruction about how to do it. Kind of a quandary. So therefore, we get to choose a practice that helps us go there, that helps us become more fully and powerfully human. And it's not always easy, because while sometimes spiritual practices result in insights or a felt sense of transcendence, mostly they're not like that. They're not like a tool we do to get something. They're tools we use to slow down and kind of retune our consciousness. They're like a compass that helps us steer our lives in a particular direction. For me, labyrinth walking is the thing that does that. It's my way to open space within myself to nurture that precious and tender connection with the interdependent web of all life. Walking the labyrinth's path helps me find a transcendent sense of connection and stay centered through all the challenges and changes in my life. So imagine that people have been walking labyrinths, they've been following that circuitous path for thousands of years. Where exactly did the labyrinth come from? That's still something of a mystery. So there's this guy. His name is a mystery. Actually not. His name is Herman Kern, and he's an internationally known art historian who studied the archaeological and historical record. And he says that the earliest labyrinth probably wasn't a pattern laid out on a surface, but was instead a dance, an instruction for specific steps that laid out the pattern, passed down through the generations, not as an image, but through physical teaching. Imagine that, an archetype for depth passed down through physical teaching, a series of steps and turns. He says that the labyrinth dance was likely part of a rite of passage, something designed to help a human being move from one stage of life to another. And then one day, somebody made a map. They wrote it down so that the pattern would not be lost and could be passed more easily through time. Herman Kern's research and that of other scholars has revealed that this labyrinth pattern, the classical one, the larger one on your handout, emerged in human consciousness on separate continents, like across the globe from each other, at approximately the same time. And that in both pre-Christian and medieval Christian times in Europe, labyrinths were used as tools for meditation, divination, pilgrimage, and prayer. The stone labyrinths that were found, that have been found, and many are still there, near the shore around the Baltic Sea, are believed to have been walked by medieval fishermen before setting out to sea to ensure good winds and a good catch. So you're swirling through the labyrinth to ensure a good wind pattern. There are turf labyrinths in England that may have been used for courtship rituals. And in India, there's a tradition that says the labyrinth was laid out in powdered herbs on a bronze plate, and then that would be dissolved in water and given to a pregnant woman who was laboring to give birth. This labyrinth drink was said to help guide the baby forth from her womb. I first met the labyrinth when I was serving a church in the Seattle area 27 years ago. My best friend had heard that the Reverend Dr. Lauren Artris of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco had brought a large labyrinth painted on a big canvas to the Seattle Episcopal Cathedral, and that we could go try walking it. Dr. Artris at that time, which was in the 1990s, was spearheading a labyrinth revolution of sorts, bringing this ancient symbol back into modern American consciousness. Walking that labyrinth was intriguing. It touched me in a way no other meditative form had tried. Up until that point, I'd been a dabbler, trying a little sitting meditation here and a little yoga over there. I was told you have to have a spiritual practice as a UU minister or you will dry up and blow away. And I didn't have one. I was dabbling around, hadn't really found anything that would click for me. I wasn't good at sitting and meditating and just breathing. I was too twitchy. Walking that labyrinth in that quiet candlelit cathedral, my mind quieted and my heart opened. The rhythm of my steps, the act of turning, meandering, and even feeling lost at times just rose up like a perfect metaphor for life's journey. I was on the path, on my path at the same time. Walking the labyrinth was really reassuring because all I had to do was put one foot in front of the other, and I would either get to that centering place or be led back out into the world. It was a cycle that felt very organic and deeply human. It felt both universal and personally transformative. Because labyrinths were kind of few and far between back then, my second labyrinth experience didn't happen for a few years. But not long after I had suffered the miscarriage of a very wanted pregnancy, a friend who lived in San Francisco invited me to go with her to walk the labyrinth at Grace Cathedral there. Again, home of Lauren Artris, who was spearheading this labyrinth movement. So on that day when I was with my friend, I entered the labyrinth with a deep sadness. I was wrestling with the question of whether I would ever be able to conceive and carry a child. I was 38 at that point, and my first husband and I had been struggling with an infertility that our doctors really couldn't explain. I had read, hadn't done a lot of labyrinth walking at that point, but I'd read that you could take a question, a heartfelt question, with you into the labyrinth and release your question, and that in the process, I might get some sort of guidance or insight that my everyday rational analytical mind was not going to be able to access. So there I was, walking that labyrinth, carrying my great longing to be a mother like a weighty stone. And I was walking to the center of the labyrinth. There were no insights. And as I followed those graceful curves and turns back to the labyrinth's entrance, nothing. And I was very disappointed. I had been so hopeful. My friend was still completing her labyrinth walk, so I sat down in one of the pews there and waited for her. As I was sitting there in the pew, though, I heard a voice, like from behind me, a very soft, clear voice, clear as a bell, and it said, "A baby will come." The words were so clear. I jumped up and turned around thinking I hadn't seen my friend finish, that she might be behind me, but there wasn't anybody there. Who had spoken those words? A baby will come. Could I trust that? I wanted to trust it so much. But I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I don't believe in that kind of hocus pocus. And yet, the following year, I gave birth to my son, who's now 24. On the text-heavy side of your handout are my guidelines for labyrinth walking. And I'd like to take a stroll through them a little bit, part of them with you right now. But you don't have to read along. In fact, I suggest that you take your fingers and trace the gray path slowly as you listen to my voice. We're just going to talk about the stages of a labyrinth walk. One way to frame a labyrinth walk is by moving through a number of distinct stages. Stage 1, readying. Before you enter the labyrinth, take a few comfortable breaths to help you feel centered in your body. Allow your mind to be quiet and your heart open. Let go of expectations and simply be open to your own experience. Stage 2, releasing and journeying inward. Step into the labyrinth now and begin to walk at your natural pace, simply placing one foot in front of the other. Let go of distracting thoughts as you follow that winding path toward the center. And feel free to pause whenever you feel like it. Receiving in the center. When you reach the center of the labyrinth, sit or stand or move as you feel called. And feel free to rest there or stay as long as you want. Stage 4, returning, journeying outward. Move along the path from the center back to the entrance. On this return journey, the integration of your experience begins. See if you can feel that. Stage 5, reflecting. After you exit the labyrinth, consider just taking a moment to reflect. Perhaps note a few thoughts in a journal. And then an important note. Each labyrinth experience is different. You might find many insights on one walk and not notice a thing another time. However, if you keep in mind that everything that happens during a labyrinth walk is part of the walk, you may discover a wealth of symbols and metaphors from your labyrinth walk. So I'd like to share with you an example of the metaphors a labyrinth walk can offer up. I know we've gone past the 4th of July, but recently my experience of what it was like when I was a child came back to me unexpectedly as I was walking a labyrinth near where I live. So I grew up across Lake Michigan in Saginaw, Michigan, and on the 4th of July, my family used to head downtown to a park where we'd lie on our backs on a blanket laid out on the slope of a grassy hill to watch as the city's fireworks exploded in showers of gold and blue and green and red sparks overhead. And on one of those nights, one of those 4th of July nights, my father leaned over and whispered to me, "Take off your glasses. It's even more amazing." So I did as he suggested, and wow, he was right. Without my glasses on, the fireworks were no longer showers of individual sparks. Instead, they bloomed into huge, glorious flowers of light on the dark sky. It was amazing. So I thought of this the other day as I was walking the labyrinth, because that particular labyrinth is located in the yard of an Episcopal church that's right on a busy corner. At times when I'm walking a labyrinth in an area where there's too much going on visually, or where there's too much noise and motion bombarding my senses, I take my glasses off as I walk. Because I'm nearsighted, everything more than a few feet away blurs and gets softer without my glasses. I can't read the words on signs or recognize what kind of car it is with the loud muffler that's driving by. And I can't even tell what kind of dog is being walked on the sidewalk 15 feet away. In fact, even my feet are blurry when I take my glasses off and look down. But it's a good thing in a noisy space when I'm walking a labyrinth that allows me to focus my attention within, just feel my feet stepping along quietly on those curving paths, rotating through the turns, breathing in, breathing out. So after this particular labyrinth walk, my mind caught on the word nearsighted. I'd come to the labyrinth that day with a question that's been haunting me ever since I semi-retired a year ago. Where am I going? What's the right path to follow? What's my long-range plan? And oh, I thought, nearsighted, not farsighted. Perhaps the labyrinth is reminding me I don't have to have a long-range plan right now. I don't have to be far-sighted right now. I don't have to be, nearsightedness is fine if I'm simply going to step quietly and calmly along this path that's right in front of me this very moment. And what I might be able to see nearsightedly could possibly be even more beautiful than I expected, like the amazing flowering of fireworks in the night sky when I was a child. That's the kind of intuitive insights that a labyrinth walk can offer. Everything that happens on the walk is part of the walk. I've entered labyrinths many times over the past 27 years in many places with many a life question and many a prayer for peace or justice or healing. I've also walked it with nothing but an open heart. I've walked alone and I've walked with other people, often with my husband, Tom. And with the help of the worldwide labyrinth locator, I've walked labyrinths in cities across the United States, in Canada, in Costa Rica. I've drawn the labyrinth in the wet sand on many beaches. I've even shoveled out the labyrinth path on a frozen lake. I've explored the science of how the labyrinth works its magic, which is a whole nother sermon. It's pretty cool, sacred geometry and all kinds of stuff. I've created my own labyrinth designs. I've taught labyrinth workshops. I've written labyrinth songs to sing while you're walking. As you could probably tell, I love the labyrinth. I love it because, as Lauren Artris likes to say, It meets us where we are. Each of us experiences the labyrinth differently because we bring our different lives to it. Now, doesn't that sound like Unitarian Universalism? It's a good spiritual practice for those of us who dwell too much in the world of books and ideas, because it helps us understand embodiment as a pathway for spiritual deepening. It's a good spiritual practice for times when we feel lost, when we're in times of great challenge or confusion. In our current time of climate crisis and climate grief, I find that walking labyrinths connects me with great love to the living earth right beneath my feet. In our current times of political divisiveness and xenophobia, walking the labyrinth is, for me, one of those ways I teach myself and my communities how we shall be more able not to simply survive the day, but also to take the future back in our own hardworking hands. It's an act of resistance and strength building to help heal an aching world, as my colleague, the Reverend Teresa Soto, described in our reading. Spiritual practices strengthen us personally, but they strengthen us for the work that we know we need to do in the world, the work of justice and healing. In our own way, each of us is a seeker of meaning on the path of life. And each of our lives is a sacred journey, a journey of discovery, growth, change, and transformation. That's why I hope you'll try walking a labyrinth sometime. On your handout on the back side is a list of all the labyrinths in Door County. They come from that worldwide labyrinth locator, which if you just Google that, it'll pop right up. It lists something like 5,000 or 6,000 labyrinths across the globe. They're not all active, I am finding. As Tom and I travel, we stop at labyrinths along the way. And sometimes we get there and the labyrinth is totally degraded and you can't really walk it. For some of you, your labyrinth handout has a labyrinth on it in Ellison Bay that is on Antler Road that is not actually active. I talked to that gentleman yesterday. I took it off the second batch of handouts that I printed. But this is the list of labyrinths that are available via the labyrinth locator right here in Door County. So I hope that you'll try it sometime. But even more, what I hope is that you'll follow the urging of our religious ancestors like William Ellery Channing, who said, "This is what we must do." And the calling of your own heart to find a spiritual practice that works for you, one that deepens your inner wisdom, connects you to the wisdom of that beyondness place, and helps guide you through all the twists and turns of your life's path. And so, in closing, shalom, blessed be, ashe, and amen. So I hope you'll rise in body or in spirit and join me now in hymn 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need.
Thank you so much, Suzelle. More reason to get out into this beautiful county and then discover where meditation can lead us. Our closing words today come from T.S. Eliot's poem, Little Gidding. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring shall be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. We'll gather back here when the chimes ring in about 10 minutes. Anyone who wants to talk with Suzelle.